Hello everybody, recognize the morning today's video. We're going to be doing another commentary. And it's been a while since I've done the commentary, mainly due to the fact that I haven't had topics to really cover on, but I've been thinking for a while now, and I've got quite a few topics that I want to think about. First, to put someone's point out, is someone points out in one of my videos that no nerd culture won when I said nerds are unpopular. I wasn't saying that nerds weren't mainstream or that their culture wasn't appreciated. I'm just saying that in things like sports and school, nerds are still a bit underappreciated and a bit more hit-on than other people. Anyway, without further ado, let's jump into today's video, the topic of today's video, which is going to be on feminism and men and women's issues. Now, before we talk about feminism, I'm going to quickly discrete it into three separate waves. The first and second waves, I think, was the 1950s or so to the 1960s. And it's still, there are still some first and second wave feminists, and they're the fight for equal rights for men and women, and I'm completely for that. The last wave of feminism we're going to be talking about is a more radical feminism, kind of like how there's radical Islam. There's always these radicals, and these are the ones that they demonize men, call men all these different names, and feel that women's struggles are extremely high when compared to men's. Well, so without further ado, let's jump into today's video. So let's start off with who has the bigger issue, men or women. Now this is very controversial, but I think neither. I think that both issues are probably equal on a scale, because if you look at it, women have really bad hormonal issues in puberty. They have a lot of bad emotional issues. This isn't saying all of them, but for the most part they do. While men have a lot of physical issues they have to make up to. They have a lot of physical expectations. There's a lot of physical things you have to make up to as a man. You have to be big, you have to be strong, you have to be all these things if you want to be considered actually a man. Meanwhile, women, they have to have like all these crazy things, same thing on the physical side, and then men at the same time, we both have these standards that we both are made up by society in all these places, which I think are stupid. An example for one is that all men have to be unsympathetic, and you have to just not show emotion. I remember I was out with my girlfriend the other day, and her stepdad, believe it or not, it's like men don't dance, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm not a man, because I was dancing to a song that I heard on the, while we were out to eat for her birthday, and it was definitely one of those things where I think, like, people have just gotten so used to being able to say things like, oh, that's not what men do, that's not what women do, you're not a lady, you're not a man. They don't realize that you can really be whatever you want to be, and that you don't have to pertain to a certain, I guess you could say, gender agenda. And now I know that sounds a little bit funny, but that's actually the truth. You don't have to pertain to certain stereotypes. Now, that's basically my ideas on what feminism is, but now I'm going to tell you about first, second wave, and third wave, and how do I feel about them. So first and second is that men and women's issues are about equal, and that they should be fought for equal treatment. Obviously, this back in the time, this was more for women, because women didn't have as much treatment as men, but now women have a lot more similar treatment, but there are still some things that are still a bit lower on the women's side, and a bit higher on the men's side that they are still fighting for. I think like a couple of them is like pay wage gap or something like that. All these little things that people get aggravated about, and I do see why they get mad. I mean, if I were paid, even if it was a couple cents less, I completely understand why people would get mad at that. But at the same time, I do not understand the third wave feminist line of thinking. So second wave feminists are more of a, I guess you could say, the peaceful types, the ones that think that men and women, for the most part, are equal, and that they fight for women because they feel that women are a little underprivileged at the time, or they feel that women are a little undersized, which I do feel is a thing to some degree, but it's not everywhere. Then there's third wave feminists, which, if you haven't seen, these are the radical ones on the news. The radical ones, these are the ones that they hate men. They want men to just die. They don't like men. They'll attack men activist groups. They'll attack all these things that they violate people's freedoms of speech. They do these crazy things because it violates what they believe in. They'll do crazy stuff. I think if one of the radical feminists actually beat the living hell out of someone they beat the hell out of his nose because he said he went to go into, I think it was a men's right activist, and then they started yelling, activist group, because he wanted to hear what they had to say, and they got mad at him. They got insanely mad. They got crazy. They went insane. They were pushing him around, beating him up, and it was quite a sight. If I find that video, I'll be sure to link it in the description. But it makes you think that there are these radicals, just like there's, but I'm not saying that that's every feminist. Now, I'm not saying that by any stretch of the imagination. That I'm saying that there are these radicals out there, and that they mostly pertain to the third wave of feminism versus the first and second wave, which a lot of feminists consider themselves first or second wave feminists and not third wave, because most of the time they don't want to pertain to that group of crazy, I guess you could say, not Nazi-like. They call them fem-Nazis, I think they call them on the internet, or they call them the feminist extremists. And this isn't to say that feminism is the only group with extremists, because there's a lot of group with extremists. Look at Islam, look at Christianity. The other day, I think not too long ago, actually not the other day, but a little while ago, a Christian shot up a Planned Parenthood place because it went against what he believed in. He thought that abortion shouldn't be right, and he basically went insane, or not insane, but he went and he shot up the place and he got arrested for it. Or how about the Islam and the constant terrorist threats where the people that are radical Islams are coming in, or at least that's what most people think, and that's what is basically the common belief at this time is that. But that's not the truth, because radicalness is common in everything. As you clearly see, it's in Christian religion, it's in Islam religion, it's in feminism, it's in basically anything that you can find. It's even in like consoles. Like if you like an Xbox more than the PlayStation, and someone's like, and you can get really radical about your belief on Xbox over PlayStation, and you can start hitting people down. So it's everywhere. Radicalism is basically everywhere. Now I did get a bit off topic there with the radicalism, but I'm going to get right back on topic here with feminism. So I stated my beliefs on feminism, stated why I believe that, and the reason, and I stated the reasons why I believe in that. But what a common belief is between one or two of the genders is that their problems are bigger, which is completely understandable because that's the human thought. That's just, humans think naturally that, oh, my crisis is bigger than yours, even though in actuality it may not be. So we instantly think that one of our problems is bigger than the other genders or the other persons, even though they could completely not be. They could completely be a complete other thing. Like an example would be if I were to say that men suffer bigger physical challenges than women, and now some people will agree with me there, but a lot of women will not. At the same time, some women will. But for the most part, it's kind of equal on both sides, because you have to look at both sides of the coin when you do anything like this. And the reason for that is because there's, like most things, there's two objecting opinions, and one opinion states that women have a stronger thing. One side states that men have a stronger physical challenges. But altogether, if you look at it on the spectrum, like if the scientists were, or if you would just look at it altogether, you would see that women and men have about equal. Women have to be, or at least women are try to be, or pertain to be, projected as like these big-breasted women, like Japanese women, I guess you could say, or hentai women, or whatever the hell you want to call them. That's what I'm going to most relate them to. But in actuality, not a lot of, they like set these high standards, and then men are meant to be ripped and tall and huge and just these like muscle machines, and they're on both ends of the spectrum. You can clearly see that if you look at it, they're kind of not that different. They're both setting these really high expectations that the opposite gender probably will never reach in actuality. And the same thing goes for, I guess, for the mental part of it. Women face a lot of mental challenges, not only in puberty, but just in general. They have a lot of mental things they have to overcome. And then men are forced to think a certain way when they're young, to not show emotion and all the fun stuff like that. And you could argue it's not the 1960s anymore, but it's still very commonplace to say, suck it up, you're a man, or men don't do that, stop doing that. Something along the lines of that. Now, so altogether, in today's video, we've discussed what feminism is, the first, second, and third wave of feminism, my personal stance on feminism, and why people get their ideas so mixed up sometimes. So that's really all for today's video. I don't know what else to cover in this topic. I could discuss for hours, but I do have to be able to fit into a 9-minute or so video. So that's really all for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe for more Saturday content. Actually, I'm probably gonna start posting on Sundays too. But that's really all, as I stated before. And without further ado, bye.
We kicked some shit.